Welcome to Innovation and Leadership. I'm Jess Larson. Today on the show, I've got Michael Karnjanaprakorn. He's the CEO of Skillshare.
What are the values that every individual at our company should or would value? And that's when we start coming up with different phrases. So over time, it evolved into this saying called SHARP, which are, people that would be a great culture fit here would be self-starters, are humble and adaptable, resourceful, and have high passion for excellence.
This is another episode of our Innovation and Leadership series where we interview pro athletes, world-class musicians, CEOs, Hollywood filmmakers, and a wide variety of other high achievers. Also, I want to talk to you about one of our show's sponsors. I met these guys back on episode 6. CEO Zach Smith was telling me all about starting a skateboard company and how much he hated doing the bookkeeping for a skateboard shop, and how he really got led to start this business, Bookly, that's a hybrid combining bookkeeping software and human services. And I'll tell you why I let him become a sponsor. It's because I use their service now. I don't love paying $50 an hour for bookkeepers to do stuff that I know software could do way, way cheaper. But I don't love bookkeeping at all. So I want a real live human who knows what they're talking about to help me with the stuff I don't understand. Probably the straw that broke the camel's back for me, though, the thing that put me over the top was that they could do my taxes and payroll also. So totally suggest checking them out. Go to their website, bookly.co, and check out their flat rates. I've been super happy with them. So now on to today's episode. Michael, thanks for making time for us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Kind of excited to have you on the show. You guys are obviously a leader in your space, but for the few people who may not know Skillshare, can you give us just a little bit of background?
Sure. Skillshare is a learning community, so you could think of it kind of like Netflix for learning. We have over 17,000 online classes for one price. A lot of our topics range anywhere from creative to business to tech skills, and we've been around, I would say, for the past 6 years.
That's great. And can you talk a little bit about what you were doing beforehand, Behance and all this?
Sure. So I would say the majority of my career has been working in tech, specifically startups. Before this, I worked at a startup called Hot Potato, which got acqui-hired by Facebook, and I was a really early employee at another startup called Behance, which was kind of like the LinkedIn for the creative professional community. Before that, I spent about a year volunteering in New Orleans, right after Hurricane Katrina, and I think that experience is what really opened my eyes to working on something that can have an impact in the world.
Yeah. By the way, can I say personally what a fan I am of Behance, and even just as a user now that it's an Adobe product, but also, their 99U conference is epic. I feel like it's one of the best conferences I've been to.
Oh, that's awesome. Funny you say that, because that was one of the early projects I worked on, Behance with Scott Belsky. So we kind of put that together, and I kind of led the initial formation of that conference.
Yeah, I consider myself a little bit of a conference junkie. Just over the years, I like learning, so I want to go to conference and see what the latest and greatest is. And I just felt like that one was one of the best produced. Such intentionality of who the speakers were. And
oh yeah, the team has done. I think they've done a phenomenal job over the years of just making it much better and better and improving it, for sure.
Yeah, such a fan. Well, listen, let's talk about Skillshare. It's obviously a space that there's other people doing some things similar, some things different. How do you guys differentiate yourself?
Yeah, so that's something that we've always thought about from day one. I actually think it's very important for all companies to kind of figure out how they differentiate, and what are those areas, and I guess over time, like what are things they're executing against to strengthen that differentiation. So we think of it across many different areas, but I guess to start, I would say one is we're very accessible and very affordable. So we are, one of very few subscription models within the space. And I would say the other area is that we're also an open platform, meaning that it's completely open. Anyone can come to the website and upload a class. So for us, we always wanted to keep it open because we wanted to, in the long run, have a class on almost every skill possible. And we knew that there's just no way that our company could not only come up with all the ideas for classes, but produce them. So we want to take advantage of, I guess, the power of the internet and create an open platform. And then on the other side is we wanted that to be as accessible and affordable for students globally.
Yeah. It's been, 6, 7 years now. What are some of the big lessons you feel like you've learned along the way?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many that come to mind. I think, when you're really, really early, like let's say you're going from 0 to 1, um, I think the biggest lesson there is just building a product that people use. And the best way you can do that is just by talking to as many customers and iterating. And I call that kind of rolling your sleeves up and getting it done and kind of navigating your way through, I guess, the minefield of things that could go wrong. And I think from 0 to 1, you're just kind of really focused on making sure you don't go out of business or making sure your idea works. And I think when you go from like 1 to 10, I think the big lesson there is really, really understanding, what levers you can pull to really grow your business predictably, and searching for those and setting up a great culture and a great team, and essentially setting up a solid foundation. And I think when you go from like 10 to 100, it's kind of like, turning on the boosters to grow the business as fast as you can. So that I kind of always viewed, Skillshare or any startup within those 3 phases. And there are definitely lessons within each one of those as well.
Yeah. Let's break those apart a little bit. So, thinking at that 0 to 1, besides data or tracking how much is viewed or what clicks are happening, what were those early interviews like? What kind of questions were you asking when you? I'm assuming you're talking about actually hopping on phone calls or emails back and forth with customers, or what form did that take?
Yeah, so the first iteration of Skillshare was actually in-person classes. So when we first started the business, nothing was online other than being able to find and book a class in your city or teach a class. And I think in the early days, we talked to a lot of people on the idea and to get feedback. And through all those conversations, we realized that there was one big reason that everyone thought this idea would fail, and that reason was really centered around it was really hard to teach, and people can't teach. So you can't take someone that works as a designer and teach them how to teach because you have to go to school for 5 years. It's really hard. So the only thing we focused on in the early days was essentially debunking that idea. So on the teacher side, I taught the first class. I got my friends to teach, and I spent a lot of time teaching them how to teach. And you have to realize that I'm not a teacher at all either. So we had to kind of devise and design a way that made it as easy as possible. And once those teachers started to teach those classes, I went to every single class. I was like the TA. I took attendance. I was customer support. Every single student that came, I asked them what they thought of the experience. And throughout that, you start finding certain themes of what works and what doesn't, and it kind of helps you kind of figure out what to do next at that early stage.
Yeah. And then when you're talking about these levers, the 1 to 10, the 2 to 10 there, what did those look like for you, or what were some of the ones you guys designed as this is how we're going to build our culture?
Yeah, I would say we have, I look at our culture and kind of I look at it like how we build our product. It's very, very deliberate. So, we never wanted our culture to be, something that kind of just happened. We wanted to kind of design it. And I think, in the early days, I think some of the mistakes we made were, we would just, hire people and it wouldn't be a cultural fit. And, our litmus test back then was, would you grab a beer with this person? That was kind of how we would deem people were a great culture fit. And we realized that didn't really work. It had a lot of subjective biases in there. And, there's a lot of people that passed that test that weren't culture fit. So we started thinking through, what are the values that every individual at our company should or would value? And that's when we started coming up with different phrases. So over time, it evolved into this saying called SHARP, which are, people that would be a great culture fit here would be self-starters that are humble and adaptable, resourceful, and have high passion for excellence. And we felt that, if anyone valued those values, that would actually solve 90 to 95% of the problems that happen in most cultures when there's a lot of disagreements on just core values. So we re-architected our interview process. We started giving out, rewards based on, those core values. And, over time, it just became, part of our ethos. And I would say today, I'm so glad that we did that and we kind of designed that into the foundation because, today we have a very diverse company. We have all different types of, sexes, age groups, races, experiences, and it gives us a very different, vantage point, and it allows us to have so many different perspectives on, how we solve some of the big challenges that we face day to day as a business.
Yeah. I'm looking at this Inc. article from a couple years back when you were in the top 35 under 35. I don't know if I said Forbes or Inc., but it talked about back then you guys had already had 180,000 students take classes online. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, and we've grown it to, I think we have over 3.5 million, users on the platform today. Which just shows the power of the internet, and the power of decentralization and network effects, and building, a platform that leverages the power, of individuals. And that's always been our ethos as well, from how we design the platform to how we design our culture.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about one of the comments you made in there is solidifying the business model, making sure you're making money. Maybe I said that wrong, but can you tell me a bit more about how you think through that process? And, everybody wants growth, but profitability obviously has value too. Can you talk about your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think in the early 2010 to 2015, the dominant business model for internet startups is free. So, it's grow your user base as big as possible, like Facebook, and then you can monetize them through ads. And I kind of, there's a lot of startups that went down that path, and I just felt that, starting a company that derived revenue from day one, especially if it was within education, I thought would work much, much better. So I think that comment was really centered around figuring out your business model, sticking to it, and growing it over time. And I would say, fast forward a couple of years, it's worked very well for a company. I would say it's just a funny thing to say, right? It's hey, figure out how your business makes money. But I think in the early 2010s, that was always build the product first and you figure out how to monetize it later. And, we kind of did it backwards.
Well, obviously you're still around, and none of the folks that do it anyway or not. So,
so
I think we've got a vote on which one is preferable.
Yeah, for sure.
At least in my books. Well, let's talk about this though. Charging for something that a lot of people can go get free versions of, where they're, they can go on a YouTube and they can get really great information sometimes, and obviously really terrible information other times. And, there's so many places to get free information on the web. Can you talk about your methodologies and your philosophy for attracting clients of why this is high enough quality, you should be paying for it, and this type of an approach?
Yeah. I think, one of the things that, we kind of focused on in the early days was really centered around how do we compensate our teachers, right? So these are people that are practitioners in the field, they're thought leaders, and they're very very busy, and we knew that most of them wanted to teach, but we also wanted to make sure that we can compensate them for their time. So for us, we do focus a lot on quality. So for us, quality can be defined as creating great content, but we really define it as just being a very great teacher. So we wanted to make sure that if our students are coming to our platform, we wanted to ensure that they would find great quality content from the world's best practitioners and experts in their fields. Not to say that a lot of our students can find those things for free on the internet, but it would be no different than paying for an album from a musician or paying for a movie. We wanted to create that same model for teachers, because we have a fundamental belief that anyone could teach, and we want to introduce more students to that breadth of content.
So I actually think this is a good place to pause for just a minute to tell you about one of our show sponsors. I was actually pretty excited when Skillshare reached out. A lot of our listeners know I'm a real learning nerd, really into the audiobooks and things like this. And these guys have a ton of great classes. There's 16,000 classes on their website. but you only pay one monthly price. You don't have to pay per class like a number of the services out there. So it's unlimited access with a low monthly price kind of thing. But the breadth of the classes and the quality of them, I'm actually really impressed with. I was on there for just a few minutes and I had like a dozen classes I've saved to take. There's stuff on social media marketing, mobile photography, logo design, just all sorts of things for growing a business or creative things. And what's nice is they're letting me give away a free month. If you go to Skillshare.com/leader, you can get a free month. The class that I would recommend for sure right off the bat, though, is from Seth Godin. I'm a big Seth Godin fan, read all his books. A lot of my friends are too. But he's got a class on there called the Modern Marketing Workshop that I really could not recommend enough. I actually think it's better than a number of his books because it's super broken down, specific how-tos. Answer this question for yourself, make a plan, write it down. It's not as much general marketing advice. It's like specific. You need to do stuff different if you watch this. Anyways, Skillshare.com/leader, get a free month. There's tons of stuff on there worth checking out. But my personal recommendation, the Modern Marketing Workshop by Seth Godin, is the one that I think you should at least check out. Anyways, let's get back in the interview. Yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about, I understand some of your top teachers are making like $40,000 a year just off this on the side. Is that right?
Yeah, I would say our top teachers now are making six figures a year, just from teaching on the platform. Yeah.
And is it just what does that model look like? Say somebody listening today is saying, I've specialized in something I'd love to teach about. I never realized I could. They come to they come to Skillshare.com. They click become a teacher. Is it a royalty that they're receiving, or what does that arrangement look like?
Yeah, it's a royalty that they receive every single month based on, I guess, engagement. So based on we take the total number of minutes watched per month and we divide it by the number of minutes in your class or classes, and we send you a royalty payment every single month based on that. So our top teachers are making six figures. And very similar to Netflix or Spotify, as our student base gets bigger, that royalty, pool gets bigger as well.
Yeah, that's got to be fun for people who thought it was a bit of a side project to now be pulling six figures, huh?
Yeah, and it just goes to the testament. A lot of our teachers weren't teachers, right? They were just people in their field that wanted either to give back and share their skills, or had people pinging them, with the same question over and over again, so they decided to kind of teach that. But, I think that's like the beauty of the internet, right? So, I always say that the biggest untapped resource in the world is knowledge. And, we can leverage the internet to allow people to share that knowledge. And if that knowledge gets shared and people develop new skills, around that, then you can imagine how much faster the world could spin and how many new things we could build, all the new innovations we can create, new companies. And it really comes down to people sharing, the knowledge that they have.
I'm thinking about this and just, how much your model appreciates or allows for the best content to rise to the top rather than having you guys pick it. What have you found? Like, what are some of the top classes, or what are trends that you've noticed as far as whether you predicted it or not, the classes that have become super popular or the themes that have become super popular?
Yeah, so I have a pretty funny story. So I would say maybe a couple of years ago, while we were kind of experimenting with, so long story short is when we moved to offline, we moved online. And when we moved online, we spent about 6 months kind of testing out what that could look like and what the content could look like. And at that point, the platform wasn't open because we're still kind of tinkering with the model. And at that point, we were designing a lot of the classes together internally. So we made all the classes, we filmed them, we picked the topics, we found the teachers. And I would say almost every class topic that we thought would do well just bombed. And a couple months later, when we opened up the platform, we kind of looked at all the content that was getting uploaded on the platform. And I remember seeing a meeting where we would kind of guess which class we thought would take off that week. And again, everything we picked was just completely wrong. And then that's when we realized that, it's 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 very hard to predict what it's going to happen in the world. And the best way for us to solve that is to create an open platform that allowed anyone to upload anything. And that's, if I told you, what some of the classes, I would say they're just all over the place. And that's the beauty behind having open platform, because you can have that long tail of content around all the random skills that might be very important to you, that you weren't able to learn in school because, maybe your college had maybe 20 majors versus, allowing you to learn machine learning. So we find it's most of the skills that aren't widely taught are the ones that do really, really well on the platform.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this style of business, the folks who have done it well have obviously had some pretty big financial rewards. I mean, you guys are growing like crazy. A lot of people know about lynda.com selling to LinkedIn for 1.5 billion, or Pluralsight, sounds like they're getting ready for an IPO, kind of $1 billion plus number. What do you think it is about this model that's so powerful?
Yeah, I think I kind of view it in two ways. One is, I do believe in the power of the internet. And when you think about platforms like Airbnb or Uber or Skillshare, those are the ones that scale exponentially, especially when they hit. And I think that model typically wins on the internet or scales. And I think within the space, within education and learning, I think it's just taking something that was previously inaccessible and making that accessible to people all around the world, and making it extremely affordable as well. So in one paradigm, you had to spend $50,000 to $100,000 to get a college degree. In another, you spend $10 to $20 a month, and you have access to a whole breadth of classes on anything that you possibly would want to learn. And if you're motivated, or you want to learn to get a new job or to start a business, having access to that is extremely game changing, especially if you think and believe that the rest of the world is going to get on the internet over the next 5 to 10 years as well.
Yeah, what is your strategy? I mean, are you guys doing anything about translation or anything as you expand globally?
Yeah, so international is going to be a big focus for us, I would say, over the next couple of years. So the company's always gone through different evolutions and different areas where we're going to be focusing, and our mission is providing access to learning and opportunities, and that could be defined as making it more affordable. I think the next version of that is making it more accessible to people across different languages and countries. Right now we're primarily English speaking, but we've seen a huge demand from just users and customers globally. So I think we're going to definitely expand and figure out how to bring Skillshare to more people all around the world.
And is your intention there more closed captioning or voiceover, or what does that conversions look like as you start addressing other things?
I think all of the above, marketing, taking our existing content, translating it, getting people within those languages and countries, teaching, so I think it's going to be a combination of everything, all the things that we mentioned previously.
Yeah, that's great. Well, listen, I think we're about up for part 1 of the episode here. Besides people coming to Skillshare.com to come check it out themselves, where else can they follow you? Check you out on Medium or social, or where do you put your ideas out?
Yeah, so I think for Skillshare, go to Skillshare.com. We're on pretty much every social channel, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. If you want to follow me, it's Mike Karnj, so MikeKarnj, on all those social channels as well.
That's great. Thanks so much, everybody. Please tune in to part 2. We're going to keep asking Michael about inventing the future here. Thanks so much. Well, that's it for the episode. One other thing I wanted to tell you about, if you remember the guys from Convoy in episodes back, Ken Free and Trent Mano, I went on one of their CEO trips to New York, and I met a guy named Brent Thompson, very successful entrepreneur. He was former CEO of Jive Communications, big company now, I think $300 or $400 million. Anyways, he started a new company called blipbillboards.com. I'm super stoked they're a sponsor now. But I remember a year and some ago when I met him, I thought it was genius. Instead of having to buy 6 months or a year's worth of billboard for thousands of dollars, you can buy 8 seconds at a time for like 10 or 20 cents. You pick what billboard you want it on, what time of day you want it to run, and it just puts so much power in the hands of marketers and CEOs who want to try something and see if it works. You can buy as many or as few as you want, change it as many times as you want. I think now our podcast is being advertised on billboards in like 18 different states because we have these guys as sponsors. We're pretty excited about it. Hope you check out blipbillboards.com. Thanks.